He was 20 years old. 20. And in that impossibly short time, he had built something from nothing. A voice so distinct, so commanding, that it stopped people mid-scroll the first time they heard it. He was the face of a new era of New York rap. Labels were calling. The world was starting to pay attention. And then, on a February night in the Hollywood Hills, 4 men in ski masks walked through a door. And everything stopped. This is not just a story about a rapper who died too young. It's a story about the world that made him, the streets that raised him, the fame that found him, and the question that still haunts everyone who loved his music. Could it have been prevented? This is the dark side of Pop Smoke. Early life. His real name was Bashar Baraka Jackson. Born on July 20th, 1999 in Canarsie, Brooklyn. A neighborhood that doesn't produce many global superstars, but has never had a shortage of survival stories. His family carried Jamaican and Panamanian roots, and Brooklyn was in his blood from the very beginning.
He wasn't always on a path toward music. School was part of his world for a while, but that chapter ended abruptly when Bashar was expelled for bringing a gun onto school property. He wasn't a child anymore in the eyes of the law. He was a teenager, making adult-sized mistakes with adult-sized consequences. What followed was house arrest. It forced him to build something. Because somewhere in those hours, sitting still when he wasn't built for stillness, Bashar started taking music seriously. Not casually, seriously. Like a man with something to prove and a clock he could feel ticking. The streets had already claimed a piece of him. The question was whether the music could claim the rest. Rise to fame. In 2018, he started recording. And almost immediately, it was clear this was not a typical story.
His voice was the first thing everyone noticed. Deep, gravelly, commanding in a way that felt almost cinematic. It didn't sound like a teenager. It sounded like someone who had already been through things most people spend a lifetime trying to avoid. His early tracks moved through Brooklyn quickly, the way good music in New York has always moved. Corner to corner, phone to phone. Then a song called NPR started getting real attention. People were listening. And then came the record that changed everything. Welcome to the Party. When that song dropped in 2019, it didn't just get streamed. It got felt. It introduced a sound. Raw, heavy, drill-influenced. That Brooklyn hadn't quite heard from itself before. Pop Smoke wasn't doing what Chicago drill did. He wasn't doing what UK drill did. He was doing something that sounded like New York specifically, authentically, urgently. Brooklyn drill had arrived, and Pop Smoke was its voice. Then came Dior. If Welcome to the Party made the city listen, Dior made the world turn its head. The track spread globally in a way that independent rap records almost never do. It landed in videos, in clubs, in gyms, in cars on every continent.
He was barely 1 year into his rap career. The dark side. Here is where the story gets complicated. Because Pop Smoke never pretended to be something he wasn't. He came from the streets. He rapped about the streets. And the streets, for better or worse,
came with him as he rose. Law enforcement had been watching him. His name had been connected in public reporting and by investigators to the Crips, specifically the Brooklyn Wu faction. Pop Smoke never shied away from the culture he came from. It was the foundation of his music, his image, his identity. But in the rap game, that kind of authenticity cuts both ways. On one side, it's what makes the music real. On the other side, It paints a target. The legal troubles arrived fast. In January 2020, right in the middle of his rise, Pop Smoke was arrested in connection with a stolen Rolls-Royce Ghost that had been transported across state lines from California to New York. He was charged with federal crimes, interstate transportation of a stolen vehicle. Federal charges at 20 years old, in the middle of a career that had barely started. The drill scene itself was under pressure.
Law enforcement in both New York and the UK had increasingly scrutinized drill music, arguing it glorified violence and escalated real-world conflicts. Whether or not that argument holds up critically, the culture around it was undeniably volatile. Artists in the scene had been shot. Some had been killed. The line between the music and the life was dangerously thin. Pop Smoke navigated that line with the kind of confidence that only 20-year-olds carry. The certainty that what happened to other people wouldn't happen to you. He was wrong, but he didn't know it yet. Success before tragedy. Despite the arrest, despite the investigation, the music didn't stop. Meet the Woo dropped in 2019 and cemented his place in the conversation. Meet the Woo 2 followed in early 2020 and debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200. A debut project. Number 7. That is not a normal trajectory. The machine was building around him now. Real label infrastructure. Real promotion. Real plans for what came next. There was talk of a major album. There was talk of collaborations that would move him from hip-hop star to mainstream crossover.
The kind of projects that turn an artist's name into something even your parents recognize. People in the industry, people who had seen it all, were using words like generational. They were comparing his potential to artists who had transformed the culture. The ceiling, everyone agreed, was nowhere close. He was 20 years old with the momentum of someone twice his age, and a voice that seemed built for stadiums. And then he flew to Los Angeles. The night everything changed. It was February 2020. Pop Smoke was in Los Angeles, caught up in the kind of West Coast trip that comes naturally when your career is accelerating. Meetings, connections, the endless motion of a young artist building something fast. He was staying at a rented home in the Hollywood Hills, an Airbnb. A beautiful house in the kind of neighborhood where people go to feel removed from the world. But Pop Smoke brought the world with him. He posted on social media throughout his stay. Photos, videos, the house visible in the background, the address, or enough of it to find, inadvertently revealed to whoever was watching. And in 2020, everyone was watching. In the early hours of February 19th, 4 men in masks forced their way into the home. Pop Smoke was in the shower. The details of what followed were brutal. He struggled. By every account, he didn't give in quietly.
He fought, but he was outnumbered, and he was shot multiple times. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. The injuries were catastrophic. At 5:24 in the morning, Bashar Baraka Jackson, Pop Smoke, was pronounced dead. He was 20 years old. His posthumous album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, was released 5 months later. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. He never got to hold it.
Legacy. Pop Smoke's posthumous album spent 3 weeks at number 1. He had 3 albums chart in the top 10 of the Billboard 200. 2 of them after he was already gone. His streams continued to climb for months after his death. His collaborations with Dior, the fashion house, gave his name an unexpected double meaning. The brand he rapped about became the brand that claimed him. Brooklyn drill went global. The sound he helped define is now one of the most influential subgenres in contemporary rap. Artists from New York to London to Lagos carry his fingerprints in their music whether they acknowledge it or not. But the legacy that matters most isn't measured in streams or chart positions. It's measured in what his story changed.
His death triggered a genuine, widespread conversation about social media and safety. About how artists, especially young Black artists from difficult backgrounds, are expected to perform their authenticity on platforms that can turn that performance into a liability. About how fame accelerates danger rather than reducing it, when the infrastructure around an artist isn't built to protect them. It triggered conversations about the music industry's responsibility, about how labels sign artists from high-risk environments and profit from the aesthetic of that risk, without always doing enough to address the very real danger underneath it. And it forced fans to sit with an uncomfortable truth. The same rawness that made Pop Smoke irresistible, the unfiltered Brooklyn energy, the street credibility, the refusal to pretend he was something softer than he was also the thing that couldn't be packaged away when the cameras were off and the doors were unlocked at 4 a.m. He was 20 years old. He had been making music professionally for less than 2 years. And in that time, he built something that outlasted him, which is more than most artists accomplish in entire careers.
In just 20 years, he left behind a mark that most artists spend entire lifetimes chasing and never find. The tragedy isn't just that he died. The tragedy is that we never got to see what came next. Rest easy, Bashar. If this documentary moved you, subscribe to The Dark Side of Celebrities, where we tell the real stories behind the world's biggest names, the ones the headlines miss, the ones that actually matter.